Hi everyone. We got cut off the last time on the Meta trade, so I'm going to just do that video again. So you're looking at a chart of Meta. Very quickly. That's your earnings report. The shares have pretty much sold off about 17% since then. What's gone wrong? Basically, the market doesn't like their capex spending, so the amount of money they're spending on AI. We've seen this story before with Meta. Again, just to repeat, this was the metaverse story back here. That was nearly 70% of the shares sold off because uh, Mark Zuckerberg really couldn't relate to the analysts what his vision was for the metaverse. So of course everybody just said they're throwing good money after bad, and the share price sold off. But I can remember doing a web meeting at the time and saying to people, look, their core advertising business is so strong. The minute they stop the capex, the share price is going to rally again. I think this is going to play out with this as well. So the question is, how low do we go? Right now, based on earnings, etc., like that, and if we jump into our equity scan tool here, you can see our target price in the stock is slightly lower than the analysts. So the analysts are up at 845. We've just marked down a couple of things, PE multiples and price to sales multiples. And our target price coming in at about 767. So let's call it 800 just to keep the numbers even, right? And we're now nearly at 6. So you're talking about a potential 33% increase. So we like it here. So you have two things you can do. You can just buy the stock, which is the simplest route, or you can consider buying a call option on Meta. Now, buying a call on Meta, you're up against the clock. That's the downside of it, and you need your return to happen quickly. That's the problem with call options. Having said all of that, you're paying less for it. So, for example, to buy 100 shares of Meta now will cost you over $60,000. We can go and buy a call option like I'm going to show you now for $6,000, and you're getting not exactly the same upside potential, but your return on investment will be so much higher if you're correct. So, first of all, when you're buying call options, rule of thumb is 60 days plus, preferably closer to 90, 100. You want to give yourself time for the trade to work out. Plus, if you've done our long call option course, and I'd encourage you to do it, you will see that the theta decay is quite slow here. So that means that you're not losing too much every day from the option devaluing. So the next rule we would have, so let's say we pick the January or the February strike, whichever one you want to pick. The next rule we would have is try and get a delta close to 0.7. So that would bring us to the 585 strike at the moment. And the reason for that is we want to give ourselves as much chance as possible of the stock being in the money. So if you look at the stock price of Meta at the moment, it's at 617. We're picking the 585 strike. So it already has real value in that option. So real value to the tune of about $31, $32. So the chances are a little bit better of you actually having some value left in this option at expiry. It's not a guarantee, of course. Meta could keep falling from here. And if it falls below 585, you lose your entire investment. That's the downside. Okay. So we just look at the P&L as if we were going to place the trade. You can see our probability, it hasn't popped up, but it's about 41%, guys. And the reason for that is the break-even price is going to be higher. We would need Meta to climb higher than where the current share price is. That's why your probability of profit is lower than, let's say, if you bought a stock. If you bought a stock, it'd be 50%. That's the downside of this. So you can see here anyway that the 585 call, the last price it traded at was $60.46. So that's per share. So per contract, that's about $6,000. So you're risking $6,000. What would your profit be? Well, let's say Meta goes back to 700. So looking back at our chart here, is 700 out of the question? Well, absolutely not. It's only would be only filling the gap here, getting back there. So it's a possibility. So let's say it did get to 700, your profit in that scenario would be quite substantial. Think about it. Your call option would be worth 115. And you've only paid 60, so you've made a $55 profit on that. So you've nearly made 100% return on investment for just buying the call option. If you bought the stock, you wouldn't make that type of return investment, and you would have more capital outlay. So there's trade-offs in buying call options. So just to summarize, the negative side of buying a call option, you're up against the clock. We need this to move by January. Otherwise, if it keeps falling and falls below 585, we could lose our 6K, right? That's the downside. The upside is if it does rebound and it rallies up to 700, for example, you could make a return on investment of nearly 100%. Whereas if you bought the stock, your capital outlay would be 60 grand. And if it falls from where it is now, let's say to let's say 580, you will be losing $36 a share. You'll be losing anyway about, if you had 100 shares, about 3,500 anyway. So the trade-offs, you've got to weigh all this up and look at it for yourself, what's right for you. The simplest way, if you've got it, is just to buy the stock and you can keep averaging into the stock. But if you didn't fancy putting out that capital outlay, you can always look at buying this particular call option. So that's it in a nutshell. They're the pros and cons of Meta. If I decide to trade it, I will let you know. I'm not ready to buy it just yet, guys. I'm just saying we're still making lower lows. So in my opinion, we got to wait for that to stop first, and then we can consider buying a call option. Buying the stock is different because you're giving yourself lots of time. So you could buy some now and keep averaging into the stock price. I think that would be a good strategy to apply. But for those of you buying the call options, I would wait for the lower lows to stop here in the chart. Okay, this is an update on Meta. Thanks and bye for now.